Breaking news. The chief of the Wagners was buried in private. A private ceremony was held for Prigozhin, who was a hero of Russia, the highest honor in Russia, at the cemetery on the city's northeastern outskirts, according to his press service. On Tuesday, the body of Russian mercenary leader Yevgeny Prigozhin, who died in a plane crash 2 months after staging a brief mutiny, was secretly buried in his hometown of St. Petersburg. After his company announced that a private ceremony had been held for the warlord, in a closed setting, it was widely assumed that he had been laid to rest at the Porokovskoye cemetery. A photographer for AFP managed to sneak around the cordon around the cemetery and catch a glimpse of what appeared to be Prigozhin's new grave marked by a wooden cross. Mourners left a framed passage from the poem, Naturemorte, by the Soviet poet and Nobel laureate Joseph Brodsky at the gravesite, which asks, dead or alive? A private ceremony was held for Prigozhin, who was a hero of Russia, Russia's highest honor, according to a statement released by his press service. The cemetery is located on the northeastern outskirts of St. Petersburg. The farewell for Yevgeny Viktorovich was a private affair. Those interested in paying their respects can do so at Porokovskoye Cemetery, his company stated. Ukrainian officials brought up the ceremony's secrecy as evidence that the Kremlin was afraid of protests. According to Mikhailo Podolyak, political advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the secret funeral of Wagner ex-chief Prigozhin as an absolute symbol of Putin's genuine fear, was posted on the messaging app Telegram. A remarkable chapter in recent Russian history, in which Prigozhin led Moscow's assaults for cities and towns in eastern Ukraine and challenged Moscow's leadership, appears to have closed with his funeral. According to political analyst Tatiana Stanovaya, a covert operation aimed at Prigozhin's elimination concluded with his funeral. Everything was done in secret and with deceptive methods, all under the watchful eye of the security agencies. According to Russian authorities, Prigozhin was one of 10 people who perished in a private plane crash last week. In what was the most serious challenge to President Putin's authority since he came to power in 2000, the spectacular plane crash in the Tver region occurred 2 months after Prigozhin ordered his troops to topple Russia's military leadership. Some military experts speculated that Prigozhin's plane was shot out of the sky by a missile, while others pointed to the possibility of a bomb as the likely cause of the crash. The Kremlin has denied claims that it was responsible for the crash as retaliation for Wagner's planned June attack on Moscow. Political observers, however, claimed that Prigozhin had become a major liability for the Kremlin in light of the upcoming Russian presidential election. After the crash, Russian authorities began looking into possible air traffic violations but have not said what led to the incident. Concerning final concerns, Putin accused Prigozhin of treason after the mutiny, but after the crash he said that he had known Prigozhin since the early 1990s and that he was a man who achieved results, despite his mistakes. Putin's comments did little to quell growing concerns over Prigozhin's death, and impromptu memorials to the Wagner chief began cropping up in cities across Russia. Earlier on Tuesday, the Kremlin announced that Putin would not be present at Prigozhin's funeral. Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Kremlin, told reporters, the presence of the president is not envisaged. Even as the regular army showed signs of weakness and suffered what Western sources have described as huge losses, the Wagner outfit had assumed a central role in Putin's offensive in Ukraine, taking on the most dangerous frontline work. The stocky and bald Prigozhin, in contrast to the Russian generals who have been criticized for ducking the battles, frequently posed for pictures with mercenaries who were supposedly on the front lines. Prigozhin publicly attacked the Russian defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, while recruiting new members in Russian prisons. The precise size of Prigozhin's fortune, which is said to have been amassed through state contracts, is unknown.